Hey everyone, so we're going to do a foundation application using a stippling brush. This is actually the MAC 187. This is definitely my least preferred way of applying foundation. However, I've only used it a couple of times and mostly it's maybe because of the foundation that I used in past. It was really thick and I feel like it was a little bit hard to sort of work into the skin using a brush like this that's kind of you want to use really lightly on your face. So I'm going to use a different foundation today. I'm going to use the Revlon Color Stay liquid foundation. I use the color Buff. It's number 150, and it's the color that's for combination oily skin. So I'm going to put a little bit of the product onto my hand, onto the back of my hand. You can always add more product later. I think it's better to use a little bit and then sort of build the coverage if you need it. So I'm going to use this brush. I'm going to sort of stick it into the product lightly. Just getting it sort of into the part that's sort of the lighter bristles. And then I'm going to start kind of stippling it onto my face like this. It's definitely going to look kind of hideous in the beginning, but as we sort of work it into our skin, it's going to get better. It's going to start to blend into our skin and it's going to make it look flawless. I can already tell that this is working better than the foundation that I had used before. It was a really kind of thick, sort of creamy foundation. And so I think that this works better with a more liquidy type of foundation. So I'm going to keep stippling on all over my skin. Now you can actually get brushes like this in multiple sizes. This one's the big one from MAC, but they also have a smaller one if you wanted to get into sort of smaller areas of your face, or if you more liked working with a smaller brush. Now with this liquid foundation too, I like to start with a smaller amount because it is sort of a medium to full coverage foundation, and I am always saying this, I don't like too much foundation on my face, but if you use less, then you're not going to put on so much. Get around your neck, because you always want to blend that in. So you can see that my face is already sort of more even in tone. It's covering up sort of a little bit of the under eye circles that I have and some of the red spots that I have on my cheek from some acne. Now that I've got it sort of all over my face, I'm kind of just going to go lightly in some circular motions to make sure that I've got it all blended in and that we don't have any of those sort of little spots of color that we put on before. So very lightly, this brush has a really sort of solid base and really fluffy light brush bristles, and you don't want to press too hard, you just kind of want to lightly go over the skin. Okay. So I think I've got that in there pretty well. So I think I'm just going to go and use my sort of go-to concealer, which is Select Cover Up for my under eyes. I'm the color NW20, and you've seen me do this before. Just going to use my finger as always because I think that's the easiest thing. And I'm putting concealer under my eye all the way up to sort of my eyelid. So while I didn't get a lot of foundation there before, I'm going to get sort of that coverage now with the concealer. So I'm just kind of blotting that into my skin. And like I said before, I have a crease under my eye here. I like to sort of move the skin a little bit just to make sure that I don't have a lot of product collecting in there. And not that anyone's ever going to go that close to you and be like, oh my god. So that's basically the application of the foundation and concealer to my under eyes. Now, I also usually go in with a separate concealer to sort of cover up any red spots. And that I usually use MAC's Studio Sculpt Concealer in NC20. And I just use my finger for that. And I think that this foundation did a really good job of sort of covering up my sort of red spots. Like I said, this is a more medium to full coverage foundation, so it is going to give you more coverage than a lot of the other foundations that I do normally use. Just going to lightly blend that in. Just kind of like that. And now I always go over my foundation with a powder. It could either be a loose, translucent powder if you're not really interested in giving yourself some more color, or it can be a colored sort of powder. I prefer, in general, to use a colored powder because my skin is very light. And after putting on foundation, I do find that my skin is definitely more even tone, which is what you're going for when adding a powder. But I do like to have a little bit more glow and color to my face. So I'm just going to use my normal sort of powder brush, lightly go over it, and I'm using MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in the color medium. I'm using the color medium now because we're heading more into the fall-winter season, and I usually use medium plus, but it's a little bit more orangey, and I think it's much more suited for kind of the summer kind of glow that you would want. I just kind of want a little bit more color without going too overboard. And I like to use this also because then I don't have to use a real heavy bronzer. And while I do love using bronzer, this is just sort of my easy everyday kind of look. Alright, so I'm going to finish out the look with a blush. I'm going to use a powder blush by MAC. It's called Melba. It's a matte blush, so it doesn't have any sparkle to it. I'm going to use my MAC 129. Smile a little bit so I can find the apples of my cheeks. Blend it out. And then you could easily apply some mascara. And maybe a little bit of lip gloss. I'm going to use L'Oreal's Infallible. It's a 6-hour lasting lip gloss. It's actually the color Bloom. It's a really nice pinky color. Apply that to your lips. And then I think that's a really simple look that you could go out sort of every day, you know, feeling put together and pretty without to keep it a little bit more mellow and sort of easygoing. So that's basically the application of foundation using a stippling brush. I used MAC's 187, but there's a lot of different brands out there that have brushes that are just as similar to this. I think Sigma has a really nice brush that's similar to this. I'm pretty sure Sephora has one. So it doesn't have to necessarily be MAC, but this is the one that I have. And like I said before, I had used this application before and not been super impressed with it, but today I actually liked it a lot. It actually worked into my face a lot better than the other foundation that I used. So I think that the key to this is using a foundation that's more sort of liquidy and creamy than a really sort of thick foundation. And a lot of the other foundations I use are really kind of thick cream foundation. So I think one way to get around that is either moistening your brush a little bit, adding a little bit of moisturizer to your foundation, or sticking to a more liquidy foundation. We used Revlon Color Stay in this video, and I really do like this foundation. It is a medium to full coverage foundation, so like I said, I started out with a little bit because I don't want too much on my face. So I hope that this was helpful for you. I'm definitely going to be using this technique much more in the future, and that I found a foundation that it works well with. So I hope this was helpful, and have a wonderful day. And even I can learn something new in one of my own videos. How wonderful is that? Talk to you later.